So I would like to first welcome everybody to this webinar. Basically, what we're going to talk about really is what the new features and functions that you can find on Voyager from our latest release. We just released the latest updates on May the 16th, so it's still very, very new. It's just over a week old. So there's quite a lot that we want to cover, although we're not going to be covering the full scope of what Voyager can do for this session. So I'd like to welcome everybody who's coming. I'm sure there's going to be others who will still be pouring in or trickling in as we go along. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will try to address them if we can get to them. But because we have 1 hour to go through some of the new features and functions in Voyager, let me know if I'm speaking too fast, and if you want me to clarify some of the information, feel free to just let me know in the chat and I can go through it one more time. I believe that there are some of you who are current users of Voyager, so maybe you've already seen some of the new updates, curious about how to use them, maybe a little bit unsure, so I'm here to kind of walk you through it. For those of you who are actually sitting in a Voyager webinar for the very first time, this can get a little bit overwhelming if you're not used to data, for sure. But feel free to reach out to us, because what we can do is also organize a more private walkthrough session that can be a bit more comprehensive and tell you a little bit more about what Voyager is all about and also what Dattel is all about. Okay, so let's get started. I hope everybody's all settled in. Are you excited to find out what we're going to talk about today? If you're excited, I would love to know in the chat, yeah? So, okay, in this special update, what we have are some new features that I will walk through with you. And these are new features that we've been working on for some time. We also have new data updates, and that data update also results in some updated list of behavioral archetypes. And I will walk you through also our Voyager data taxonomy. Technically, this has been available before we've done the latest release, but we've reorganized something so it's just easier for you to find the information that you need. So we're going to be focusing on the new stuff on Voyager, not the full scope of Voyager itself. So like I said, if there's any of you who would like to get a full demo of Voyager and would like to spend a little bit more time just understanding how it can work for your business or for your agency or for your brand, then what you can do, my colleague Vinny will share a link to the form that you can fill up. You can start filling it up now, or you can fill it up a little bit later, but maybe Vinny, you can share that link now in the chat and you guys can click on that link. So there it is, the link. So you can click on this link and fill in the form if you would like to have a special one-on-one demo session to understand Voyager fully, okay? So for this session, we're going to be kind of skimming through some of the key points and key highlights based on the new release. Okay, everybody good? If you're all good, can you just type yes in the chat, just to make sure that everybody is clear that we're going to only cover the new features and functions for this session. All right, cool. Okay, everybody. Yes, yes. Okay, I hope you all are excited about these new features, because we're quite excited also to share them with you. All right, so here goes. The first one that I want to talk about is basically what you probably would have seen before the latest release. So this was the landing page for Voyager that you would have seen prior to the new release. So what you can see here is we had a dashboard called CI Persona, where you're able to look at a set of curated charts that you can use to analyze based on criteria that you select, whether it's a combination of behavior, archetypes, and identity meaning demographics, or product category. So based on the combination, you would be able to see a set of curated information that you would be able to use to build a data-driven consumer profile. Now, that is what was in the previous release. Besides that, you also would have the section called Explore, which gives you the full list of all the different data types that we had, the consumer verticals that we cover, the archetypes that we use that we've generated, our proprietary segmentation as well. And then we also have the section Navigate, and this one is for the more I'd say for the bolder ones, the bolder analysts who are used to working with data, then you would probably want to be able to mix and match data as you would like to uncover hidden truths about consumer behavior. And Navigate is the place where you would go to get the full list of data that's available on Voyager. So the CI persona is a curated list of data sets, whereas Navigate has the full list of data sets, but requires a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more adventurous and willingness to experiment. Yeah. But once you get the hang of it, it is really no problem to use Navigate. Okay, so like I mentioned, with the latest release, we've also updated our data to Q1 2021. So you're going to see new functions, but you're also going to see the latest data set that we've collected from Q1 of this year. So we'll be updating Voyager on a very regular basis, and you will be seeing the data uploads happening on a continuous basis as we do, as we update the data set on a quarter-to-quarter interval. Okay. So this was the latest, this was before the latest release. So on the 16th of May, this is what you are now going to see when you log into Voyager. Okay, so what you can see here, I just want to double check. You can see that we have 3 dashboards here: Persona Analytics, Diagnostic and Prescriptive Analytics, as well as Insights. Yeah. So this is basically the new version of Voyager, which what we've done here is when we had the CI Persona dashboard on the left, we've actually split them into 2 different dashboards. So you've still got Persona Analytics, which covers most of the details, but we've taken out 2 of the tabs, which are the Advocacy Index and the Consumer Journey or Customer Journey, and moved it into its own dashboard. So now that means that the controls and the criteria that you use to make your selection and your analysis will be slightly different. And then we've added a 3rd dashboard. And this dashboard, I would say, the easiest way to describe it is that it is essentially a quick and dirty way of doing market research where the data set is already there and you can pull based on your certain criteria a report that also includes automatically generated narratives as well. So it has a comprehensive view because you can look at market sizing, customer persona, and customer messaging as well. So I'll cover these a little bit more. Now, as you scroll down, you can see that we still have our ASEAN Vitals, we still have Navigate in My Folder. Explore has now been renamed to Our Taxonomy. We'll cover that a little bit as we go along. So there are still some of the same features and functions that are available here. The big difference here is we've added these 3 different dashboards. And I'm going to explain how these dashboards actually are going to work for you. But another thing that I want to point out, and this relates very much to the 3 dashboards on top. Previously, when we had the CI Persona dashboard, when you use the dashboard and let's say, for example, you switch from a behavior and identity to a product and behavior view, you won't be able to save the personas that you've generated. So what we've done now is we've enabled that saving feature. So that is one of the big updates to Voyager. So before this, what you can save prior to this was basically what you pull out from Navigate. But now you're also able to save content that you generate through the dashboards. So each of them has their own folder. So for Persona Analytics, you can save, for example, if I were to click on this, and I can see these are all the different personas that I've generated and I've saved. Okay, so this is essentially the dashboard folder where you can see what you have saved from all the 3 different dashboards. All right, so let's go back to the home page and I'm going to start talking about the Persona Analytics. Right. With the Persona Analytics, essentially what we can see is that there's what remains the same is that you can still look according to behavior and identity, or identity and product and behavior. So the selection criteria remains the same. However, there are certain updates, and let's go for example. I would like to take, let's say, product and behavior. Now, the charts that you're going to see, whether you choose product and behavior or identity and behavior or product and identity, will still be the same. So the chart content here is the same regardless of which of the Persona Analytics dashboard that you choose. Okay, you're going to get the same demographic information, the same lifestyle charts, media, shopping brand, and so on and so forth. What you can see here though is we've got this drawer here that you can slide in and out. And your selection criteria now is in this drawer. So you can just do your necessary updates over here. So let's say, for example, I want to create a persona, and my persona that I'm going to create, I will choose clothing. So I'm not going to change the product at this stage, but I am going to choose a theme. And my theme that I'm going to choose is Fitness Me. Okay. So now what this does, as usual, I will have the new updates and the data then is reflected. So I can see in the lifestyle, for example, that. So as I click on lifestyle, I can see the data set. So I know what the market size of this particular section is. So I know the market size of clothes consumers who are fitting into the Fitness Me archetype. And as you can see also, like I said, there are some updates to the chart. So we've refreshed the chart, curated charts as well for the new release. So you will see some new information that wasn't available before when we before the release. So there's some new information here that you can take a look at. All right. So you can take your time later on to go through all the different tabs. But what I want to do now is I want to save this. So I'm going to use this later on, and I want to save this, and you can create a persona name. So I'm going to call this brand X because maybe I'm using this for a particular brand. So let's call it brand X FitFab. Okay, whatever the name may be. So you have the persona setting, you have your persona criteria, and you can save it as a persona for you to use on a repeated basis. Now you can also save it in a PDF format if you want. So you just click on this and it will preview the whole thing, and then you can save in a PDF. All right. But most important now is that I've already saved the persona and I want to see what that looks like. So I go to my folder and I click on the dashboard. And as you can see here, I've already generated the brand X FitFab consumer persona. Okay, so I've got the persona analytics. I click on it and it will take me to the full list of the details that we've already saved. So this is going to be updated as well when we have fresh data. So let's say, for example, when we update a Voyager with Q2 2021 data, then the brand X FitFab persona will also be updated with Q2 2021 data as well. Okay, so this will always follow whatever the latest data set that's available on the dashboard. So as you can see, I already have that and it's saved. If I want to make changes to this, I can still make changes if I want. Or I can save it as a new copy, or I just overwrite the existing persona. If I were to make certain changes, maybe I change the theme and the archetype, for example. If I want to save that as a different persona, I save as a copy. If I want to overwrite the existing persona, then I just click save. Meantime, I'm happy with what I've got. And so I've got brand X FitFab. I can look at the details here. It gives a quick overview of what I've selected in my criteria. All right. Now, as you can see, and this is the other interesting thing that I think everybody would be quite excited about, because one of the things that we realized is that for a lot of people, once they have access to this data, there's also the question of what do I do with it and how do I execute this? So for the persona analytics, the main focus that we wanted to highlight is that you are able to take the data that you've already curated according to your criteria and then export it to a social media platform that you want to use for your audience targeting. So we think that that is actually going to be a bit of a game changer in terms of what you can do. Now, so you can see here right now it's available for Facebook. We're working on other social media platforms as well that you can push your criteria or your persona to. So I'm going to show you what I've already done. So this is my ads manager. And just to let you know, for example, so let's say, let me close that. Okay, so these are all the different the different personas or the different criteria personas that I have actually exported into my Facebook ads manager, so I can use this for different campaigns. Now, if I want to look at it by campaign, so I've also generated different campaigns here, and under each of the campaign, I would have a particular set of personas that I've generated and I've exported to Facebook. Okay, so these are all coming from Voyager and I've exported it directly onto Facebook for me to execute as a campaign. All right, so now I want to go back to the dashboard real quick. So what I want to do also is, now I'm going to show you how I link it. Sorry, is there a question? If you have any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, yeah? So feel free to type out your questions in the chat and I'll attend to them. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to show you how we link it. So what I do is I click on the Facebook icon and it will connect to whichever Facebook account that you are currently logged in. So currently I'm logged into my own account, so I continue. And what it does is it pops up. So make sure that you don't have your pop-up blocker on. So you've got to make sure that you that this pop-up can open. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to export it. So what you can see here is the details of the persona name with the rest of the details that's selected, the Facebook ad ID that's connected to the Facebook account that you've logged into. And then the next thing that you want to do is actually give a name to the campaign. So you can either start with creating a new campaign name, or you can pick based on with any of the campaigns that you've probably already generated. So for this purpose, I'm just going to go with a campaign that I've already generated. So because I've already generated this, the campaign is already there. But what I want to do now is I am creating an audience ad set for this campaign using this persona. So the Brand X FitFab is another ad set for the Streets Ahead fashion campaign. So as I click create, so what it does right now is it connects, because it's already connected to that Facebook account, it is going to push the persona criteria to the Facebook account and I can view the campaign. So let's see what happens now. As I open the ads manager, so now I see that there are two personas or two ad sets that have been created using Brand X FitFab, and they're separated into two age groups. So this is how our algorithm on the back end actually works. So in some cases, you may find that the persona is only going to generate one ad set. Like for example, when I did with Cool Hunters 20 to 29. But with Brand X FitFab, what the data set or what the algorithm has found and calculated is that there are two possible sizable market segments that you can target differently, which means there is enough difference in the criteria to distinguish the 20 to 29 and 30 to 39 segments of Brand X FitFab. So I end up with two different ad sets here that I can use. And at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you want to use both or you want to use one or you want to A/B test them. It's really your choice. But at this point, you've already generated the criteria automatically as you've exported the data. Now, let's take a look at what we see here. I'm going to click on edit here just to get a sense of what's in here. So what you can see as you scroll down, it provides you with the information. So it's got age group, it's got the gender and location, obviously, and the detailed targeting. Now, this is the information that we've matched with the Facebook categories and criteria that's available. Now, one thing I want to caution you guys is that Facebook doesn't show you everything about its criteria and for targeting and for matching. So what we do is we match with, I would say, like the top layer of the categories, and then the subsequent layers is then populated by Facebook itself. Okay, so there are certain things that we can do with exporting, but it doesn't mean we take over the entire Facebook environment and then pick and choose on our own. It's unfortunately not that way, lah. That's not how Facebook works, right? So, but what this does is it takes away from the guesswork of having to just create and manually select on your own from the get-go. So what it does here is with our data set, we're able to match with the top layer of the categories that are available on Facebook, and then Facebook populates or recommends the rest of the details according to how it organizes its own data structure is organized. So as you can see here, the detailed targeting has all the information that probably you wouldn't be able to mix and add on your own, but it's already fixed. So what you want to do is then just set your budget, how much you want to spend, and then when you want to spend it, and so on and so forth, and when you want to run the campaign. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, I hope. So it's really, I think, something that helps to simplify the process a lot. and you're able to really use this as many times, and you can use this across different campaigns, and you can generate as many campaigns as you'd like. I think there's no limit at the moment to the number of personas that you can generate at any given time. All right. Okay. Do we have any questions at the moment? Is everybody clear, or is that just very confusing? And you would love to have a one-on-one walkthrough. Is it clear so far? If it's clear, can you type in the chat whether it's clear or there are things that you would like to ask? So far, so good. Okay, cool. All right, great. Now, so basically what we can see with persona analytics, which is the very first one that I've showed you, is with this, you can build your own data-driven consumer persona. All it takes is just combining the criteria set at the very beginning, and then it will populate the rest of it with a curated data set. Secondly, now you can save the customer's personas. That's the latest new feature. You can save your personas so that you can use them repeatedly. And most importantly, I think this is last and not least, you can now export them to your Facebook ad manager, and in the future, which we're currently working on right now, to other social media platforms as well. So you can use this to basically start your omni-channel marketing and take essentially the guesswork out of your target audience criteria. So that's essentially the main purpose and the main benefit, if I were to say, of what you can do with persona analytics. All right. Now, there may be some questions. I think it's possible that some of you will be wondering, especially for those of you who maybe are managing more than one Facebook account. So you've generated multiple personas for different brands and different clients. So maybe you want to know, how do you connect to more than one Facebook account at a given time? So what Voyager does is not to permanently create a link between the persona that you've generated with your ad manager. It only creates a temporary link for you to push the criteria over to Facebook, and after that, basically the link is disconnected, and you can just log out of that Facebook account and log into another Facebook account that you want to connect another persona to. So essentially, it doesn't matter which account that you want to use, as long as you're logged into the Facebook account, then you are able to just export the data over to that particular Facebook account. Once you've logged out of that Facebook account, the criteria is going to stay inside the ad manager. So it doesn't mean that if you've logged out, suddenly the criteria is going to disappear. Of course not, because it's already generated in the Facebook ad manager, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I hope that's one of the questions that people ask. Now, another question also is, since you can overwrite the persona and you can make changes to the persona, if you save those changes, does that affect the persona that you've already exported to Facebook? No. Again, because of the fact that you're just pushing that set of criteria at that time, so that is pretty static. It will only change if you re-upload the new persona and to the same campaign. Then you basically what you need to do is just delete the old persona or the old ad set, and then push the updated saved persona to that campaign, and it will generate the latest ad set for you. The same thing also works when we've got updated data. So let's say, for example, you've used this persona in quarter one, or you've used the quarter one 2021 persona, and you want to reuse it for the next quarter. So in the next quarter, we will have an updated data set for that persona. So there's going to be some changes in some of the behaviors, right? Now, that data set will be reflected only if you push that persona to Facebook again. Otherwise, it will still be the same earlier set that you had saved that will still be used. All right. So the persona themselves don't change automatically on Facebook Ad Manager because you've changed it on Facebook, on Voyager. You would need to push it again on from Voyager to Facebook for those updated changes to be reflected. All right. Let's see if there are any. Okay. So far everybody feels that it's clear. I'm glad. But feel free to Basically request for a special one-on-one session, that's not a problem. You know, we know that there's plenty actually that can be done with Voyager, and it's going to take some time also for some of you to get used to using some of the new features, and not to mention the existing features already. Okay, now I want to talk about the insights section, which is on the far right of the dashboard. So the insights, like I mentioned, is what I would consider more of a quick and dirty way of generating market insights. And you can use any combination, whether market sizing, customer persona, or customer messaging. So let me show you. So with this insights here, you can see that we've got few different, you know, you can choose either one, or you can actually generate a combination of these three. That's really up to you. But the same process also works, because when you generate, you are also able to save these profiles that you've generated. And it's the same thing as well. So essentially, it's just you choosing which of the dashboards are of interest to you, and then picking and then saving the persona once you're happy with the outcome. So in this case, when I say it's the quick and dirty version with auto-generated narratives, this actually helps, especially for people who may not yet be comfortable with, you know, interpreting the data. As I showed earlier with the persona analytics, there's a lot of data there, and it might take some time for people, especially those who may not have the experience working with this sort of data, with consumer data, or maybe don't have the resources to be able to sit down and do the analysis themselves. This is a simplified version. Of course, it is not as great as if you have an individual doing the analysis for you, but this is still, you know, it's a quick and dirty way, which is useful, especially for data newbies, I would say. So what you can see here is we've got three tabs: demographic segmentation, behavior archetypes, and a financial situation study. And this is for market sizing, which is really to understand the size and the potential market size of a particular product category. So in this case, I will just stick for now. I won't change this. It's more of walking you guys through what the content is. As you can see, these are all the demographics. And you can see also right below each of these charts are some of the auto-generated narratives that will highlight information that you can find on the chart. So as you make a selection, you will probably see some of the charts narratives changing as you go along. Yeah. So you can see here, we've got the list of demographics. And then as you go to the behavior archetypes, now you're able to refine your segment a little bit more. So in this segmentation refinement, you see the charts, the same charts, but they are side by side. So on the left here, you will see the charts that describe the entire consumer market of that product. So this remains unchanged unless you change the criteria here. Okay, the market percentage represents, if I were to look at the demographic segmentation, the market percentage here represents the market for clothing. Okay, but if I go to behavior archetypes and I start refining, so let's say, for example, I am going to create, you know what, I will, let's say, for example, I'm going to show you what I've already created. So under the insights, let's go to Sugar Night. So this is market sizing Sugar Night, which is, I think, for soft drink consumers, men in their 30s. Okay, so this is one I've saved and created earlier. So the product is soft drinks under the vertical FB beverage, non-alcoholic beverages soft drink. So you can see here that this is the entire market that consumes soft drinks in Q1 2021. And you can see the description of the charts here. Let's just give it a bit of time for it to update. There we go. Okay, so we can see here. So this describes the full soft drink market. And then when we go to the behavior archetypes, what I've done here is I've narrowed down or refined the segment further, and I selected males 30 to 39. And immediately you can see from a 36% market size, we're seeing the market size actually decreasing significantly. So we know that when it comes to refinement, if we're talking about only males 30 to 39 who consume soft drinks, we're looking at roughly 5% of the entire market size. By the way, this data set is I'm using Malaysia data set as a reference. So of course, when you're looking at Thailand data for Thai users, then you will see a different outcomes, obviously, but still the same charts. So what you can see here, you can see based on the refined segment and the behavior archetypes for the entire market, there are some differences. You can see in terms of the order of the behavior archetypes has changed, and the percentages also are different, and it's reflected in the narratives as well. And then you've got the financial situation study, which is just a kind of a general overview in terms of their attitude and their sort of like perception towards how well they're managing their finances. So like I said, this one is more of it's just a basic overview of understanding the market size of the particular product, and then refining further by looking at a specific demographic segment. Okay, now let's try and create one. No, before we create one, I want to show another one, which is on customer persona. So customer persona, I created a persona called Jijah Likes Juice. And this one is, as you can guess, they're basically cordials and juice consumers. And I focused on women. So the age group that I focused on is 20 to 49. Women, 20 to 49. And as you can see also, the demographics and the tabs that are available up here are a little bit different from the market sizing. So when it comes to the customer persona here, it's not as comprehensive as the persona analytics, obviously, but it gives you a lot of information that is already included, that already comes with the auto-generated narratives as well to help you understand the chart better. So once you're familiar and comfortable with using the insights, then perhaps then you would feel more comfortable also using the persona analytics to try and analyze and interpret the data that's there on your own. Okay, so here we can see that there are some differences. As mentioned, we excluded the 50 to 69 age group, and we excluded males from this this persona. So you can see some changes in the proportions of the demographics as well. So you have basic customer details, which are essentially the demographics. Second. So the second one shows education and occupation, as well as household size. And then you have some information on their lifestyle and leisure activities. Not as, like I said, not as comprehensive as what you can see in the persona analytics, but it definitely gives you a different perspective, understanding what the entire market of that particular product is like versus the segment of interest. So you can see here there is a difference in the percentages in terms of their preference, where they like to spend their leisure time, a little bit of difference in terms of how they like to spend their time at home and how they like to spend their time outside of home. For example, women are more inclined to actually go out food hunting over meeting friends and family, although it's still higher compared to most consumers of cordials and juices. Okay, so we're seeing these differences here. And you can click on the shopping behavior and brand affinity as well. Now let's try and create one for customer messaging. Okay. Now I'm going to create one that I think the setting that I'm going to choose is for males 30 to 39 who are online gamers. Now, for those of you who have not yet used messaging, now this has already been in the persona analytics, so you can find this data set also in the messaging tab in persona analytics. But just to remind you all, basically when it comes to the values and the messaging here, essentially this is the values that we're talking about. Let me just use my laser pointer. So essentially what we're looking at here is the value structure of consumers in terms of what they feel is important, in terms of how their worldview essentially. And as we see, consumers have different degrees of which of these values they consider more important than others for themselves. And based on the differences in which one they prioritize, we then determine which are going to be most effective when you construct a message that addresses those particular values. Yeah. So essentially what we want here is to find the key values that will resonate with men aged 30 to 39. I won't touch the household income for the time being. But now, before my refinement, I've already selected. So what we see here is among men aged 30 to 39, we can see that the top three values are elitist, pleasure seeker, and explorer. And this is a description of what these values are. And then this kind of is a summary of the kind of message or the spirit of the message that you can use to connect better with this particular target group, males 30 to 39 in Malaysia. So because they're elitist, the message that they're interested in the recognition that they deserve, because their pleasure seeker score is also high, they're looking for continuous enjoyment, and then because they're explorers, they're interested in discovering new things. Now, if I were then to add a refinement, and I'm going to put playtime, and I'm going to add an online gamer. I'm sorry, there's somebody who is, I think you need to be on mute. I think there is somebody who is not on mute. Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Yeah, just make sure that if you're going to take calls or you're going to have other discussions, although I prefer that you pay attention to me, please put yourself on mute, yeah? All right. So what we've done here now, if we've refined this particular group, males 30 to 39, and we've added an archetype, online gamer. What you see here, for example, now you see this was what we've generated for males 30 to 39. But when we look at online gamers, we see that while elitist is still there, we're seeing two new values pop up, stronger than pleasure seeker and explorer, which are competitor and team player. So automatically, once we start refining, you're seeing also that some messages work better with certain segments than other messages. So this means that when it comes to males 30 to 39 who are online gamers, these are the messages that will work best with them. Elitist remains a core message, but it's better to work with competitor message and team player message as opposed to pleasure seeker and explorer message. So that's how you start using this to refine further. So let's say I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this file and I'm going to call it Alpha Gamer. Now, one thing to note is that these reports in insights, unfortunately, these are not ones that you can use for Facebook targeting, but they are, the main purpose is actually for you to be able to look at a view of your consumer market and then decide how you want to position your product, how you want to design a campaign. But in terms of implementation, if you're looking at implementing and exporting the data for your communications onto social media, then you want to use persona analytics. Yeah. And the reason why at the moment we don't allow for you to export your insights data onto Facebook is because I think it will cause a lot of confusion when you have different personas grouped in different ways. So if you have persona or different profiles, so if you have persona profiles, and then you also have some similar profile that's on insights and you want to push both of them, you may end up confusing yourself. So that's why right now, only if you're only using persona analytics, then you're able to push the data to your social media platforms. All right. So essentially, what we've seen here in terms of what insights can do for you, you can definitely get your quick insight reports complete with the auto-generated narratives. So it's just easy for you to get a full view of the market, and it's easy and it is time saving. And it's a simple starting point, especially for people who are not as familiar with data. So whether you're an entrepreneur about to start a business, or you have a small marketing and a team, or you don't have anybody who is going to be able to do any data analysis for you, then this is a good starting point for you to start using and familiarizing yourself with data before you dive into other tools like the persona analytics and also the diagnostics. Any questions so far? I know we're running out of time, so I'm gonna have to move on to the next one real quick. But you know, any questions? Are we all good? Okay, if we're good, then I'm gonna move on to the next one. Now, the next one that I want to show you is the diagnostics and prescriptive analytics. Now, with this one, basically, like I said, this one I think relates more to big with brands and also agencies to look at the performance of brands across either by comparing against competitors or by comparing against different market segments that you may be targeting. So as you can see, we've got two versions of the advocacy index, the product and consumer journey. If you're starting from a product or brand or product and brand perspective, you're basically looking at one individual brand and then comparing different market segments to that brand. Okay, so that's one perspective. Then there's the consumer perspective, where you're starting from the behavior and identity, which means you have already identified one particular consumer segment and you want to see how this consumer segment perceives different brands. So you may be comparing different brands, but looking from the perspective of one consumer segment only. Okay, so let's go and see how this works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you something that I've already created. So I've created Convenience Me 20s. So essentially, this one is this is an advocacy index report. So for those of you who don't know what advocacy index means, it basically is an index to calculate whether or not your brand has more people or more users who like it and would recommend it to others, as opposed to consumers who don't really like your brand. So the higher your advocacy index, it means the healthier your brand is, because there are more people who like and would recommend the brand. So what I've done here is I've looked at Convenience Me 20-year-olds. So this is my setting. So I've looked at themes and archetypes. I've chosen the 20 to 29 age groups. And then I compare against internet and data services. And I've looked across 4 different brands. So you can kind of see, so I don't know whether there are any telco people out there right now watching. But yeah, this is what it looks like for your brand in Q1 2021 among 20 to 29-year-olds in Malaysia. So Celcom needs a little bit more work, whereas DG seems to be doing very well among 20 to 29. This represents Maxis, and then this is U-Mobile. So U-Mobile and Celcom seems to be in a similar state at this point. And Maxis, DG is the one that's basically most favorable at this point among the 20 to 29-year-old. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this real quick. So that is basically advocacy index using behavior and identity. So now I'm going to show you how we create, let's create a customer journey, but I'm going to use a product and brand. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate this real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a brand. But first, let's see, the product itself is going to be, I'm going to choose non-alcoholic beverages, and I want, let me see, dairy-based drink. So I'm making my selection, and the derivative is yogurt drink and kefir, and I'm going to go with one brand. Remember, we're only now, once we are starting from the perspective of the brand and product and brand, that means we only select one product. If we're starting from the perspective of identity and behavior, then we're choosing one consumer segment. So it always starts with that as the central point. So then we can choose different age groups. Maybe first I want to choose, I don't want to choose an age group, but I want to choose all male. And then I want to go with males 20 to 29. I want to compare all males with males 20 to 29. And then the next age group, I want to compare females with all females 20 to 29. So it's simply just selecting your criteria for you to look and compare. So this is what it looks like in terms of the consumer journey, from the awareness all the way to advocate for the brand Calpis among males, all ages, as well as males 20 to 29. So you can see where it's doing better or where it's doing worse. And you can just change the age groups if you want. And then comparing against females. So it seems that females, Calpis is far more popular among females, women than men. But interestingly, not among 20 to 29 year old women. So that means it's among women who are a little bit older compared to males. So from here already you can see and you can track the performance, and then there's also the recommended information at the different stages of the consumer journey and what your business can do to address them. So you can look at your own brand, you can look at a proxy brand, or you can look at a competitor brand. It's up to you. So there's no limit really to which brand, as long as the brand is listed and the brand is available in our database, then you're able to do a comparison. And also provided that there is sufficient data of respondents that answered those particular questions. Okay, so I had to go through this real quick because I know there might be some questions, and I do want to cover something also at the very end here. How are we now? Are you guys okay? Is that clear? Do you guys have questions? If you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Was that a lot to take? I'm just curious. I don't know whether you guys are, you guys have questions or you guys are confused. Is this confusing? I mean, if it is, also please, let me know in the chat. Okay, everybody is really quiet. Maybe you're all really paying attention to every word I say, which is great. Anyway, okay, so I've covered generally the top 3 dashboards here, and I want to go quickly into the taxonomy as well. Oh, is there a question? Oh, it's going great. Thank you, Hilya. Fantastic. So I want to cover briefly our taxonomy here. So the taxonomy essentially is like I said, it's all the different data sets that are available that you can view. So we've got consumer archetypes here, which are household archetypes and themes and behavioral. I did mention earlier that we have some updates on the behavioral archetypes with the latest data set. So using the Q1 2021 data, we have updated our behavior archetypes. And essentially, okay, so I'm going to skip through this. I think we've already explained what diagnostics and prescriptive analytics can do. But I want to walk through the behavior archetypes here. That essentially our archetypes, they are about consumer behavior. And this is consumption behavior that's not just online, but also offline behavior. And this is how we look at the survey responses of our respondents and how they respond across different verticals. As you can see, these are all the different verticals. And based on their responses, we categorize them into different behavior archetypes. The behavior archetypes are not mutually exclusive, which means each consumer can be part of more than 2 or more behavior archetypes, and usually they are. So it captures offline behavior. It is also representative of the entire population, and we track it quarterly. So there will always be updates to the behavior archetypes as you continue using. So what's new in the behavior archetypes? Basically, this explains a little bit in terms of how you can use them, as I've demonstrated in the 3 dashboards. But most important is, in Q4 2020, this is our list of behavior archetypes. You've got 25 archetypes organized in 9 themes. But what we've updated is we've added 1 new theme and 2 new archetypes. So as you can see here, this is the new theme, family first, and our 2 new archetypes, public commuter and baby and me. Now, I know there probably is a lot of questions also about what each of these archetypes mean. I'm just curious, would you be interested then in another webinar where we go through these behavior archetypes and look at what those changes, how these behavior archetypes have changed and how consumer behavior according to these behavior archetypes have changed from Q4 2020 to Q1 2021? Would you be interested in that? Yes. Okay. Moses says yes. So I would like to know if anybody else would be interested in a webinar specifically on the behavior archetypes, then we can organize one. That's not a problem. Okay. Cool. Okay. Everybody's interested. I'm glad. Sheikh, I will address your question a little shortly. And I think maybe what you're asking for is probably more suited if you have a one-on-one session or a specific session. So what you can do is actually fill up the Google form, and then we can attend to that particular question more specifically. Yeah. All right. So these are the behavior archetypes, and you can explore them. They're already available on the 3 dashboards for you to explore. But at the same time, you can also go to this, our taxonomy, and you can download the file of the 27 behavior archetypes. It's a description of the archetypes, but it doesn't give you a full picture of what has changed over time, obviously. And we can talk about that in another separate webinar. But you can download this so you can understand a little bit better about what those archetypes are and how you can use them. All right. Okay, and then the other part of our taxonomy that I want to cover also is the verticals. Now, this actually was available even before our new release, but perhaps some of you have not seen this yet because a lot of our users actually wanted to see the full list of data so that they know what they want to look for and whether the data that they're looking for is available on Voyager. So what we have here, you can actually click on each of these icons. Let's say I'm going to go to food and beverage, and you're going to see the full list of all the questions that are available on Voyager. As you click on each, you are going to see the full set of questions relating to all the different products or certain behaviors and so on and so forth. So you can explore this at your own time to understand what sort of questions are available. So for example, it's not just about products, but it's also about behavior. In this case, while you're looking at beverages and foods, there's also questions about their food and beverage habits, such as eating habits and grocery shopping, and also the F&B services that consumers use. So you can feel free to look through all the questions and find out which question is going to be relevant for you. You can also take a look at when these questions are available, and you can find these questions in our navigate section. So the period here refers to which period where the data is available, and therefore you can select according to the availability of that period. All right, so that covers our taxonomy as well. Okay, I've breezed through quite a lot, and I know that there are some questions, I think. If there are no questions besides Sheikh, I mean, at the moment, if you guys have any questions and you want to know a little bit more about how some of our tools work, please let me know. Okay, June just asked, how and where do we get all this data? So what we do is we have our curated panel of respondents. And this is curated in Malaysia, is curated to represent the population because we collect according to age, gender, and location. The data is weighted according to age, gender, and household income. And the data that we collect is basically single source, which means all the data that you see is collected from the same set of respondents, which means we're able to compare and contrast the data sets together. In Thailand, the data is collected across 6 provinces, and then we apply weightage to make it representative of the population. I hope that answers your question, June. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, let's see. How about data behavior of Indonesia? At the moment, we're focusing more on Malaysia and Thailand, but we do have plans to expand into Indonesia again in the future. But for now, our priority is the Malaysia and the Thailand market. Do you need to pay extra for other than Malaysia? Well, yes. Essentially, if you're looking at, say, for example, if you're interested in looking at data for 2 markets, then there is a separate price point. Now, if you're interested in looking at what our price point are for all the different subscription types, we can get in touch with you, and I think our sales representatives can share with you the information on the subscription options that are available. Let me see. Helia asked about Singapore and Philippines. Singapore, not at the moment. Philippines, not in the near future. But we do have plans to expand to the rest of ASEAN. But for now, the priority remains Malaysia and Thailand for the time being. But we will keep you posted if we are looking at expanding, because obviously expansion requires a lot more planning, and that might still take some time. So I would say not anytime in the near future. With regard to the sample size base, so approximately our sample size for each country is 2,000. So we try to maintain about approximately 2,000 sample size for each quarter, and they're approximately the same respondents on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So we try to maintain the same respondents. Occasionally, of course, it's inevitable that you will have some respondents who decide to drop out after some time, and we are also continuously recruiting new respondents as well. That is the response to Kuncanya Sutengkul. I hope I pronounced that right. I am so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Do we have local brand data in each country? Yes, we do. I'm assuming that what you're asking for is, do we have data specific to the country, data of brands specific to the country? Yes, we do. We do not have all local brands. The reason is because most of the time, if in some cases we don't look at niche brands. The problem with niche brands, given our sample size, is that it may not be sufficient for us to do any deep diving. So we would need a minimum threshold number of respondents who actually answer certain questions related to specific brands in order for us to actually display the data. So there are certain statistical considerations that we need to take into account. So most of the brands that we cover are MNC brands, but there are also local brands, obviously. But the local brands also have to have approximately nationwide presence. So not regional or local brands, as in that is only covered in a particular limited geographical space. Okay, so Kunchanya, I hope that answers your question as well. But if you do have additional questions, by all means, what you can do is please click on this link, the link that was shared by my colleague Kunvini. So you can actually click on that Google form, fill in your details, and what we will do is we will get in touch with you so that you are able to either have a full walkthrough, or you get, for those of you who have not yet used Voyager, maybe you'll be interested in trying out Voyager for 7 days for free. So, you know, those are things that you can do. All you need to do is just click on the link. If you can see in the chat, the link is being shared. Please click on that link, fill up your details. I would like to know actually how many of you would be interested in a one-on-one session. Can you put it in the chat? How many of you would be interested in a one-on-one session to understand Voyager? Okay, Shay. Okay, do WhatsApp me. Yes, we will be in touch with you, Shay. Is there anybody else who would be interested in having a little bit more comprehensive session with us? Fill in the form. Let me know also in the chat. We definitely look forward to being able to share the full scope of what Voyager can do and work with you on being more data driven and using Voyager for your marketing needs. Definitely. Okay. So if there are no further questions, I think we need to close this off already. So the next thing to do is actually to follow us on social media. So on LinkedIn, you can find us. We are Dattel Asia Group. We are also on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us by searching Dattel Asia. And on Twitter and Instagram, you can follow us at Dattel Asia, one word. Okay? So please get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. We would love to see how we can help you use the data, not just Voyager as a platform, but also use the data on Voyager. I'm sure there are some of you who are also interested in figuring out, if you can do this on Voyager, can you do it for my consumer data, for my customer data? So if you have those kinds of questions as well, feel free to fill in the form and let's have a talk about that as well. Okay? So if there are no more questions, I would like to thank everybody for joining me on this webinar session. I hope this has been a very insightful and exciting session, and you can see the possibilities of what you can do with Voyager with some of these new features and functions. I would love to hear feedback from you guys as well in terms of what we can do or what you would like to have on Voyager, or how else you would like data to help you with your marketing and your marketing communications. So we'd love to hear that as well. So again, thank you so much for joining me in this session. So from my colleagues and myself, I would like to say thank you, Tokun Ka, and see you again soon. And hopefully I will see you in our next webinar. We will organize a webinar on the 27 behavioral archetypes for you guys to see what's the latest. All right. Thanks so much. Have a nice day and stay safe.